Christmas getaway. This happened in 2005 during Christmas vacation. I moved away for college and came back home to visit for the holidays, so I ended up spending a week in my hometown in a snowy state. On my last night there, my friend and I decided to go sledding at 3 a.m. We get in our car and both head over to a hill nearby. We go up and down a few times, enjoying the frosty winter breeze and pillowy snow kissing our cheeks. We're then about to go down the hill again, and she prepares herself until I stop her. She asked me what's wrong, and I told her that I had a bad feeling. The hair on the back of my neck was standing up, and for some reason, I felt nervous. I told her we needed to leave now. She was understandably confused, but headed to the car with me anyway. We began driving back to my family home. We lived in a town where no one really locked their doors. The crime rate was almost nothing, and all the neighbors knew each other. But when we got back, something told me to lock all the doors. We relaxed for a bit until she decides to take a nap. I only had a few hours left before I had to catch my flight back to campus, so I stepped outside because I wanted to see the snow and smell the fresh air one more time before I had to go. I looked at a huge pine tree we had in our front yard. I always thought the way the snow rested on those branches looked so beautiful. Then something caught my eye. What should have been pure fresh snow was littered in huge footprints. They were human and wrapped around the tree and went towards the backyard. I was thinking maybe my uncle had been out there smoking or something, just trying to think of anything to rationalize why those prints were there. The same feeling came back to me when we were sledding, the anxious and paranoid feeling in the pit of my stomach. I look to my left and I see a man, but he's running, sprinting, staring straight at me. He was probably close to 300 pounds and maybe 6 feet, and for his size, he was super fast. I froze in fear with the realization he's not just doing a morning jog. He is coming towards me. I tried to move, but I was petrified and frozen stiff. With everything in me, I was able to bolt towards the door and slammed it shut. I locked it before running to the window to look outside onto my porch. I see the man standing there. He had his hand on the door. Then, he turns his head and looks over to a man that's sitting in the driver's seat of a white van. The guy in the van throws up his hands in a gesture to say, "Well?" The man at the door then shakes his head and walks to the van. He gets in and they just drive away. With my heart still pounding, I wake up my friend and make her walk around the house with me. There we found that the footprints went to every door and window around the house. Just like me, this freaked her out as well. That malicious look on his face as he ran to me told me everything and still haunts me to this day. A man approached me and my kids in a deserted mall parking lot at 10 o'clock at night. This happened about 5 years ago while I was 9 months pregnant. I was Christmas shopping at the mall with my then 7 and 15-year-old daughters. There was an Applebee's attached to the mall, and we ended our shopping pretty late when the mall was starting to close, so I took my kids to the Applebee's for a late dinner. We finished eating up at about 10 p.m. We exit the Applebee's into the practically deserted parking lot with our shopping bags in hand, when a guy likely in his 50s starts walking towards us out of nowhere. He had shaggy gray hair and a faded flannel shirt paired with old jeans. I noticed him briskly approaching in the distance. He said, and I quote, "This is a stick-up. Give me all your money." My eyes widened and heart raced. I stared at him owlishly. Then, right after, while I'm shaking, he proceeds to tell me he was just kidding and came and stood right next to my daughters, who were standing on the other side of the car, waiting for me to unlock it. He then starts making small talk with me and my girls. He's asking things like if they were being good girls for Santa, how old they were, if we got all our Christmas shopping done, and other questions. He didn't seem drunk, high, or anything. He was very coherent and seemed of sound mind. Mind you, I was a heavily pregnant woman alone with my 2 daughters in a mostly deserted parking lot at 10 o'clock at night. I was being approached by a stranger who came and stood right next to my kids on the other side of the car, just shooting the breeze with his hands in his pockets and occasionally looking over his shoulder. This exchange went on for a couple of minutes, and the frequency of him looking over his shoulders increased. I tried to stay calm, but I was panicking. I felt that at any moment he was going to pull a knife or gun or rob me, and my kids were right next to him. He kept trying to engage them in conversation, and I could see that my oldest daughter was a little weirded out. I tried to politely give him hints that the conversation was over by saying things like, "Yeah, it was nice meeting with you, but I gotta get these kids to bed," and telling my girls to say that it was nice meeting him too. My polite attempts to get this guy to leave weren't working because he kept sidestepping my attempts and saying how nice young ladies they were. My outgoing 7-year-old was completely oblivious to everything because he was seemingly friendly and I was still around her. So, she started to talk about what she picked out for her father for Christmas and started enthusiastically talking to him about Minecraft. I don't blame her, as I know she didn't know, but she was unintentionally keeping this creep from leaving us alone by engaging him in conversation. I kept thinking he was waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Then, all of a sudden he said, "Okay, it was nice talking with you. See you later," and walked off in the same direction which he came. And of course, it wasn't until then I finally found my car keys. I unlocked the car and told my kids to get in fast. I got in after them, quickly locked the doors, started the car, and drove the hell out of there. My 15-year-old lightheartedly and jokingly said, "Okay, that was weird," and laughed. I was overwhelmed with relief, and then I was confused over what just happened. I thought to myself, why the hell would a guy of seemingly sound mind think it's totally okay to go out of his way just to approach a woman and her kids in a deserted parking lot late at night just to chit-chat? But being that nothing bad happened, I brushed it off and joked about it too. When we got home, my husband greeted us and asked us how our shopping went, and I said it went well. My 15-year-old daughter told him what happened in the parking lot and how weird it was and was kind of joking about it. I started joking too, saying how I was panicking while trying to look calm, and I started making fun of myself by telling my husband how I was attempting to inconspicuously rummage through my purse to find my keys. My husband went completely pale, and I acknowledged his horrified look of alarm and assured him that, albeit creepy, the guy was just talking and eventually left on his own. Now, my father-in-law is a retired sheriff deputy, and my husband went through police academy training after graduating high school. Ultimately, he decided to go to business school instead of becoming a cop, but anyway, he had the knowledge he gained from that, plus growing up with a cop for a dad, and what he told me completely rattled me. And my husband told me that he was 100% sure that the reason why the guy was hanging around us and chit-chatting was because he was waiting for me to unlock my car. And the reason why he was standing next to our kids was because once I unlocked the car and the kids started to get inside, he was most likely going to force himself into the car with the kids and hold a knife or gun to them to gain leverage on me. My husband believes he would have most likely made me drive to a remote location to do God knows what. And being that he wasn't wearing any mask or covering his face, suggests that his intentions were to also leave no witnesses to identify him. I then remembered that he was positioned by the backseat passenger door where my 7-year-old was standing by waiting to get in. My husband then told me that the most likely reason why the guy ended up leaving was because it took so long for me to find my keys, and the longer it took, the more anxious and tense it made him. And that whole time, I was desperate to find my keys, when not unlocking the door might have been what saved me. Christmas Hooded Stranger. This happened to my very close family friends on Christmas Day a few years ago. I used to babysit for this family at around age 12, and I later used to house sit and dog sit for them all throughout my 20s for months at a time. This story is pretty creepy for me because I spent a ton of time alone at their house. So, this family is enjoying a stereotypical Christmas Day evening in their home. It's winter, and so it's dark very early. It's a drizzly, wet, foggy night outside. The family is quite large and the kids are all grown in their 20s and 30s. Most of them have jobs out of state, but everyone has come home to be together for the holidays. Siblings are busy playing with Christmas loot. TVs are all on. Christmas music is playing. Food is being cooked and eaten, and there's a ton of laughing and talking. This goes on for hours. The youngest daughter spots her dad standing in the middle of the courtyard outside in a black hooded sweatshirt. The hood is over his head, so just his mouth and chin are visible, and he's just looking in at the house. She casually calls over to her mom, who's in the kitchen, to go check on Dad because it seems like he needs help with something in the yard. Except, Mom says Dad is in the bedroom, taking a nap. Mom and sister quickly come to the realization that there is a total stranger in a black hoodie just staring in at them, not moving, on Christmas Day evening. As you can imagine, the family collectively shits enough bricks to build another chimney for Santa. They proceed to alert everyone in the house, running around checking the locks on the many sliding glass doors and windows, and wake up Dad. In the meantime, Black Hoodie Creep can see everyone's movements because the house is pretty much completely glass window walls. This guy continues to just stand there in an intentionally creepy, Jason-like pose, not moving. Except now, he has a sinister smile laid on his face. It's obvious that he's enjoying being caught. At first, the family thinks it might be a practical joke. The family members start to yell and call out things to intimidate him. Like, if this is a joke, it's not funny. We've already called the cops. We have a gun. But the guy just keeps standing there, smiling and still remaining motionless for a long time. Then, suddenly and seemingly out of nowhere, he rushes up to the glass and starts pounding on it, not saying a word, his face still obscured by the hood he donned. Obviously, he's intentionally trying to scare everyone, if not bring him to the house, and now the family really does call the cops. After pounding on the glass for a good while, he runs and hops the fence near the home's trash cans and heads to the neighbors' yards. The neighbors are also good friends, so the family calls to let them know what is happening, but they never see the hooded man. The cops arrive within minutes, take statements, check all the neighboring houses, but never find this guy. Not long after, the family had their courtyard area completely remodeled, including a new security and light system. The scariest bit of the story, for me, is that they have no idea how long this guy was just standing there watching them enjoy every second of their Christmas.